just touch on some of the overwhelming evidence indicating that the theology undergirding the rituals of Islam is exactly the theology that undergirded the rituals of Maya. In particular, in Maya, sajda was made, or prostration was made to a black god. In Islam, sajda or prostration is made to a black god. The same black god that we encountered last week in a theology of the black god articulated by the ancient Egyptians. So I want to press this point of Dios further. Kaba, composed of the ancient Egyptian terms Ka and Ba. Now, in order to appreciate where I'm going, you have to understand some Egyptian ontology. Egyptian understanding of beingness. That's what ontology means. Beingness. The ancient Egyptians divided being, human beingness, and divine beingness. Divided it into different layers and components. Some say 7, others say 9. It's only 3 that's relevant to our discussion today. Again, to the ancient Egyptians, every individual and every god, its beingness has different components. Hot, the physical body of the god, and the physical mortal body of humanity is called hot, and represented by a leaping fish. Now, this is critical because it alerts us to that aqueous matter, that liquidy matter from which the body, the black body of the god was made. So the hot, the mortal body of the god is called hot. The immortal body of the god was called the Kaba. Now, this is important. The Ka and the Hot, they are identical. They are bodies. This is Noon creating on his potter's wheel the Hot, the body, and the Ka. They are both identical. The difference is the Hot is the mortal body, the Ka is the immortal body. It is not the body of light. It looks, the difference between the Hot, the Ka, and the Hot is the Hot is that one that suffers ailments. It is subject to the threats of flesh. It is subject to the vices of the mundane world. Versus the Ka. The Ka is the body, the immortal body that is not subject to the vices of the mundane world. Now, I'm going to come back to this. The Ba is the essence of the God. It's the Ba that incarnates in the statue that enlivens the statue. The statue undergoes a particular ritual process. The priest undergoes on the statue a particular ritual process that caused the Ba of the deity behind that statue down. The essence of the deity is ritualistically called down to inhabit the statue. When the ritual is successful and the Ba inhabits the statue is no longer a statue. The statue is the Kaba, the immortal body on earth of the God, versus the Kaba, the mortal body of God. Do you follow?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, Emily Teeter tells us the divine statue was provided as a physical form, Ka, in which the Ba could reside so that human beings could communicate with it. Once filled with and enlivened by the Ba of the God, the cult statue became the Ka, or physical form of the God. This is critically important when talking about the Kaba and unpacking the insight of Diop that the Kaba is composed of these two Egyptian, these two Maidic ontological terms, Ka and Ba. Is it the case that the theology has nothing to do with its Egyptian cognate? Well,
Come on.
Hildegard Louis, a Jewish scholar, wrote an immensely important article in 1950. It was published in Archive Orientalis, an important Near Eastern Studies academic peer-reviewed journal. This article, Origin and Significance of the Magan David, a comparative study of the ancient religions of Jerusalem and Mecca. Professor Louis studied the ancient religion of Mecca. She studied the cult of the Kaba in pre-Islamic Mecca and the reforms introduced to it by Muhammad. And she documents not, be clear, Kaba is the name of both the temple and the black stone. In fact, the black stone is the Kaba per se. That's the primary Kaba. The house Kaba, but its ancient name was Baytullah, house of Allah. That's what its original name was. The Kaba itself is the stone. But inasmuch as the stone resides in the house took the name Kaba. But the primary reference of Kaba is the stone. And it's the stone that Professor Louis focused on as he documented that. The ancient religion of Mecca that focused on the black stone was part of a general religious tradition in which the stone was thought to be, as she says, the black stone was thought to be a part of the body of a great God. She documents that the black stone was thought to be a part of the body of a great God in the form of a black meteorite, a piece of the deity's, the God's astral body, heavenly body, was visible to the congregation at all times, like the statue in the temples of Maya. It was no break with the ancient religion of Mecca when Muhammad set up the black stone in a place where it was accessible to the eyes and the lips of the worshipers. It is pertinent to recall that before designating the Kaaba as the Qibla, or the place of direction of prayer, Muhammad ordered his followers to turn their faces in prayer toward the sacred rock in Jerusalem. The significance of this command becomes apparent if it is kept in mind that the Qibla, turning oneself in a particular direction for prayer, that the Qibla is an outgrowth of the belief that a man can address his prayers only to a being visible to his eyes. What is it saying? It's saying it's to pray to Allah as if you see him. That man can address his prayers only to a being visible to the eyes. When praying, the worshiper turned his eyes either to the heavenly body itself, the statue, or in its absence to a stone. To a stone or statue representing it on earth. If, however, he was not present in the time where a sacred stone, assumed to be a part of the deity's heavenly body, was visible to the congregation, he still turned his eyes in the direction of the sanctuary. It being supposed that, having visited and inspected the deity's body on the occasion of the annual pilgrimage Hajj, he could visualize it and thus address his prayer to it even from a distant point or locality. Oh, this is deep. Professor Louis documents that the cult of the black stones in Arabia called Beytels, they were believed to be piece of matter from the body of the god. And specifically, she documents that the black stone and the body are related to the primordial aqueous matter. Now, the whole point of the cult of the stones is this understanding that proper prayer to and worship of a God requires the ability to directly interact with the God, either in person or in one's mind. To be able to visualize the God in order to properly worship him or her. And the black stone in the Kaba grew out of that tradition. That was the point of the cult of the Kaba in ancient Arabia, the black stone. Kaba was the sign of the body of the God of that house.
That's right.
The God of Baytullah, the house of Allah. In other words, the black stone represented the same thing that the black statue represented in the temples of Kaba. It represented the body of the God worshipped. And who is the God worshipped by or at the Kaaba? Baytullah, the house of Allah, Allah himself. Now, the priests in Kemet, when they were circumambulating the temple of Neith with this replica of Osiris 7 times, just as the Kaaba is circumambulated 7 times. Rafiq Bilal and Thomas Goodwin note the commonality between this Hajj practice and what goes on in Kemet, but they are unable to draw the full profound significance of the commonality. They note that, for example, when you go on Hajj and you circumambulate the Kaba, you dressed in a seamless ihram garb, linen garb, seamless linen garb. Rafiq Bilal and Thomas Goodwin correctly know the parallel between the ihram garb and the seamless mummy garb that the dead god wore. Osiris characteristically wore a seamless linen garb. Mummies were buried in seamless linen garb. The seamless linen garb represented the death of the god. Because this is what the dead bodies were embalmed in. Why do Muslims dress in a seamless white linen garb, a mummy garb, when worshiping Allah at the Kaba? There is a report, according to Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of the second Caliph. We are told that one, as I mentioned last week, the Prophet would himself circumambulate the Kaaba riding a camel, and he would stretch his staff out when he passed the Kaaba, the stone, and he would shout, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. We're also told that Muhammad would touch the black stone, kiss it, and weep for a long time. He would cry, he would touch it and cry. Why cry? Are they happy tears? Well, he reportedly told Umar, oh Umar, this is the place where one should shed tears. Why is the Prophet crying at the black stone? Does it have anything to do with the fact that Muslims circumambulate the black stone in a mummy's garb? Our church boy tells us the solar god, as the son of evening or of autumn, was the suffering, dying god, or the dead son buried in the nether earth. To show this, it was made a mummy, bound up in a linen vesture without seam, and thus imaged in the likeness of the dead who bore the mummy form on earth. The sun god, when descending into Aminta, may be said to mummify or caress his own body in becoming earth, or as it were, flesh in the earth of Ptah. The sun god descending on earth and taking on an earthly mortal form is a suffering god, is a dying God. He dies in his his mortal body. And this is why Osiris, a replica of Osiris, the paramount dead black god, with his signature seamless linen mummy garb, is brought out and carried when the temple is circumambulated. It is a temple of lamentation, lamenting the death and suffering of Osiris, of the god. Just as Muslims circumambulate, though they know not, circumambulate the black stone, the body of the god. But as we noted last week, the difference between the black body and the blue body is a difference between life and death. Osiris, when he takes on the body of, Ra, the sun god, the luminous god, when he takes on Osiris, the black body, eventually he dies. And that body eventually becomes the cause of his death. And this is depicted as